So those two structural differences make a huge, huge impact to the technology that serves the industry, the way that the stakeholders relate to one another, the type of communication that buyers and sellers expect in the market.
Hey investors, Bradley here from Watson Estates, and you're listening to the largest, fastest growing podcast for Toronto real estate on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. We like to keep track of the news, keep up to date with what are some of the big trends, some of the shifts that are happening in and around us. But one of the things that's changing that we don't discuss very often, it's not so sexy to do so, is the evolution and the disruption of technology. Look at the last few years during COVID, especially, we see realtors that would traditionally never want to do it filling in and being willing to adopt e-signatures. We see virtual tours and virtual showings more than ever before. As well, sale data. You can go online without having any license and see what a property has sold for. And all of these changes in technology really makes people wonder, where does the real estate professional fit into all of this? Is there a need for them? Where are things headed due to technology? That's what we're going to talk about today on our show. Joining us is Simon Bray, the president of REW. Simon is a great dude to speak to about this topic because of his experience globally. He was the CEO of leading South African property portal Private Property. He also spent some time in Southeast Asia working on the Dot Property Portal Group and is the CEO of marketplaces for global aggregation network Lifull Connect. Now, we are super thrilled to have him on the show because we talk about how our real estate industry works relative to other countries and how technology is changing the future of our industry. Specifically, what is REW doing? Where are they putting their money behind in this industry? Are realtors involved? And if so, how does that all come together? We had a really good chat. If you're getting value out of our show, please hit the like, support us with a comment, and you can share this video, tag us at Watson Estates. But I hope you guys enjoy the show. Simon, nice of you to join us on the show. How are you?
Oh, great. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, it's good to be with you this kind of fresh fall morning here in Vancouver.
Yeah, a little bit of a time difference, but I appreciate you getting up bright and early for us to discuss the future of real estate technology. You guys are on the cutting edge as far as partnering with realtors and looking at where the industry is headed. But before we get into what that utopia could look like, let's introduce you. Let's talk a little bit about your backstory and what brings you into working with REW.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can probably hear from my accent that I'm not born and bred Canadian. It's a South African accent. So I started out life in SA and got into the portal space, which is kind of like the real estate marketplace space, well over 10 years ago now, about 15 years ago. Built a software company for realtors with a co-founder friend of mine, and really developed the back office and listing component of it, and then ultimately sold that business to a real estate marketplace in South Africa. And that's the first time that I started operating on this interface between home seekers and what they expect and what they need, and the real estate industry as it was kind of set up then, and the players inside that industry. And so that's been a fascinating journey because that's taken me all over the world. Pretty much every country you look at, there's this requirement for real estate agents, developers to connect with the broader market. And that connection point has become predominantly digital, predominantly online in the last 20 years. And so every country's got a small little Zillow or a small little realtor.ca floating around. And I've been lucky enough to encounter a lot of the guys running those businesses, work with them, and then more recently based in Europe, got to run a few of those businesses from the European hub. And then ultimately decided to come out west, because this is for me the kind of last frontier when it comes to digital real estate technology. The rest of the world operates quite differently to the North American context. So it was exciting for me to come here, learn about the players and stakeholders, the game, how it could change. And it's been a great ride. Got here just before the pandemic. And then, of course, you know, the world changed and we've been dealing with that. But yeah, overall, Brandon, yeah, this technology and real estate has been, for better or worse, my bag for the last 15 years.
Beautiful. And I do notice even the technology we have here in Ontario, a lot of it does come from this kind of incubator that's BC and works its way across. I see some companies attempt to come out of Toronto, and they do, but they seem to be more localized. It seems that the stuff that comes out of BC tends to carry coast to coast. And what I guess maybe there's something in there that one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you obviously have, it sounds like, developed a lot of the systems for other countries. You're now here and you're learning how it works. I'm curious, what are some of the big differences, some of the shocks and adjustments that you've had to make as you're developing a software for our market that you haven't noticed in other countries? When we talk to people locally, they seem to say, this is Canada, the best real estate market in the world. Organized real estate is fantastic. But I'm curious, from someone who has actually seen the globe and seen the way it works, is that actually the case? How does our market stack up against those out there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can certainly point to some contrast between the markets. I don't know if you can put them on a kind of ranking based on, which is better than the other. But yeah, the business of real estate is done quite differently in the rest of the world. I think you know that. I think this concept of probably the biggest structural difference is the presence of the MLS in North America, and the role of the realtors on the buy side and the sell side of the transaction. So those two structural differences make a huge, huge impact to the technology that serves the industry, the way that the stakeholders relate to one another, the type of communication that buyers and sellers expect in the market. So I'll just unpack them quickly. The buy side, sell side split on the realtor is a really, really interesting one. Anywhere else in the world, well, most other Western democracies where you've got free title property rights, you've got one agent in the transaction. So somebody's looking to sell their property, and they contract with a listing agent, and that listing agent brokers the deal with any buyers that are interested. And so what that means is, I mean, you think realtors here have got a hard time dealing with all of the incoming kind of traffic and business. In other markets, they're doing both sides of that job. So they're acquiring listings and mandates, and they're dealing with all the leads and inquiries that come through on those properties, and they're showing them and they're selling them and dealing with the transaction flow. And so in some respects, the need for automation and the need for technology in those markets is greater because you've got this kind of single point of failure in the real estate agent. And so they really engage with products and services like ours in the marketplace space that can make those things simpler for them. Come out here, and it's really interesting. It's like the realtors in some regard were the first movers in the technology space. They saw the need for better systems and frameworks and automation, and dealt with them through predominantly the only tool that they had, which were real estate associations and groups of like-minded professionals that needed to solve problems. And so that's, I think, the genesis of something like the MLS. And the MLS is a phenomenon that you don't see outside of North America to any great degree, where there is complete data sharing between realtors. And in other markets, the data privacy or the data, and I know you'd love to chat about this, so we can kind of talk about this on a separate comment, but the data sharing between realtors is quite poor, whereas in North America, the data sharing between realtors is extremely good because of the MLS. But what that does is it propagates the system that currently exists. It to the degree that hyper specialization exists. Guys only do listings, or guys only do the buy side of the transaction. Focus on investment buyers, focus on new home buyers. It's like you get that opportunity because the system has been set up in such a way that you can. Whereas in the rest of the world, it's more of a jack of all trades type of real estate industry supported by the technologies that exist.
Interesting. So I guess the one lingering question I have is, if not through an MLS system, what is the majority platform for folks to promote their property, for realtors that are a single point of contact to get them out there, out beyond the walls of North America?
So, I mean, this is a great segue into what we do. And what I've been doing in different businesses for the last 15 years, which is this marketplace space. So if you think of a marketplace in the traditional context was like a bazaar with a lot of different tables, and everyone brings their wares, and anybody who wants to buy arrives at the marketplace, and anyone who wants to sell arrives at the marketplace, and they meet, and they have this serendipitous moment where they can trade. Digital marketplaces, portal platforms do that in real estate, and in markets across the world, those platforms become very, very important. They become the kind of single point where all of the supply is aggregated. So all of the listings get aggregated in one place, and it becomes the place where all the buyers come to because all the supply is aggregated in that one place. Whereas when you look at the structure here, the supply aggregation is happening through the realtor networks, the MLSs and the boards, and the buyer aggregation, so where the buyers are mingling with that real estate, is happening on platforms like ours. It's happening on the digital online marketplaces like REW.ca, Realtor, and others. And that separation between the supply aggregation and the demand aggregation is quite an interesting nuance of the market here. So to answer your question, how do agents access the market in other countries around the world? Usually through these portal platforms and marketplace platforms, but without the MLS. The supply aggregation is actually happening through the marketplace company.
Interesting. So it's almost been, it sounds as though how I picture it in the last 20, 25 years, pre-internet, pre-MLS, MLS was done very archaic here as well. But in the rest of the world, I get the sense that there was a very disorganized format. As soon as you have a platform where people can all link at one table, I'm picturing like a Facebook marketplace, everyone shows up, all of a sudden it gets a lot cleaner. We in North America kind of adjusted to allow for us at that time to have a platform to have both parties be able to connect. That was through the real estate industry. I'm curious, does it now with technology a factor make more sense for us to look and feel more like other industries? I guess one of the questions to come back to looking at what you guys do at REW is, what are some of the most impactful improvements that you've seen in the industry that has come out of the technology that we have? What are some of the benefits of technology today that we should be taking advantage of? And obviously being in an older industry can sometimes be a little slow.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is just wrap up the prior comment by saying that because the sharing of listings is happening inside of a real estate only marketplace, which is effectively what an MLS is. It's like, if you're an agent, you can see all the data, and that basically means that you create the environment for a supply side and a demand side agent. You create the environment for a listing agent and a buying agent. So that's almost it's symptomatic of having data sharing between agents. It means that some agents can specialize on buyer deals, and some can specialize on sales side. And that kind of distinction is less apparent in any other market. You don't have two agents in the transaction in other markets. And I think that's partly because you don't have this data sharing opportunity between agents. But talking about tech and kind of like how technology has improved the industry, or kind of what are the biggest changes that we've seen, I think real estate, like most commerce, but perhaps more so than any other form of commerce, is incredibly relational. It is it's kind of like the pinnacle of human interaction in business. And I know you'll know that as well. It's very, very personal decision for a lot of people. Even if you're investing, it's very tough to keep the emotional component of real estate and the personal component of real estate out of investment decisions. It's like the number of investors you'll talk to, and it's yeah, but I just don't quite like that place. But that's got nothing to do with it. It's like their numbers work or the numbers don't. But for some reason in real estate, it becomes a very personal thing. And so where you've got this highly relational, highly personal asset transfer taking place, the communications that really matter are those human communication opportunities. And technology has done an incredible job of overhauling the way we communicate with one another. And I think people don't notice that. Like when we talk about disruption in real estate technology, we miss the most disruptive components of it. Like if you think about how you might show a home today, you don't have to actually have somebody come and do a physical viewing. You can, dial them up on FaceTime, walk them through the property, do video notes, do voice notes. That form of communication has been incredibly disruptive to real estate because it takes the hyper-local nature of it, like your buyer has to be in town, and really change that to have your buyer can be anywhere. I mean, we ran a great portal in Thailand, in Bangkok, and a lot of our buyers were Europeans. And so you'd be selling real estate all day to people that won't see it for the next 6 months. So that type of technology has been very disruptive. The chain of technology that supports the transaction, like DocuSign and document workflows, has been incredibly disruptive to the way that we do business. But what's interesting is we use the word disruptive to indicate disintermediation. It's like, technology is going to take everybody's job. It's going to eat a swathe of the pie. But what's happened, at least to date, is that technology in real estate has increased the pie for everyone. You can now sell more broadly to a market that you couldn't access before. You can do it from your phone instead of doing it from an office. You can do it far more frequently than you were doing it before. And so as a real estate professional, far from disintermediating you, the disruption has actually made it, you that much more effective and built your ability as a professional to trade. And so that's where I see technology really having an impact, and a positive impact on real estate, as it increases the frequency and the efficiency of the transaction. And so it actually benefits all the parties in the transaction.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And obviously, maybe I'll get you to comment as well on how the pandemic has it changed things? Has it just sped up what was already being written?
Yeah. Just jet fuel on an already burning building. It's like the pandemic was this immediate shift in buying behavior on two fronts. I mean, like, we're talking about it as a past tense, but obviously it's still going on. But the two fronts were really the adoption of real estate from younger buyers, and that's something that's super, super interesting to us at REW and how we build our tools going forward. But the other side has been, as you say, like the remote nature of it has just thrust to the forefront all of the technology that was already in the industry. I mean, the classic example is actually the virtual tour. I mean, everybody sort of thought that the virtual tour was an interesting idea when it first came out 10 years ago. It was quirky, and it was like the VR of the day. And then it all but disappeared. It was like, you kind of have to have one. And then through the pandemic, it was just crazy important to have the interior in a virtual tour format for buyers to kind of go through the home. So just jet fuel on a blaze. And so the technology adoption that was maybe sitting at 40-50% ahead of the pandemic is now at 70-80% across the real estate market. So it's good to see.
One of the things that you mentioned, maybe we can camp here for a little bit, the timing of the recording today makes this a far more relevant conversation. We're going to air this in a couple months. This will be in the new year when this comes out. But one of the things that is interesting to me is when I listen to folks from Zillow, and I listen to folks that are on yourselves included, and websites where people have access to sale data, there seems to be, for the most part in the industry, an understanding that realtors play a big part in all of that. But when I'm listening and speaking with some of our audience, especially investors or young folks, there seems to be this perception that realtors will no longer have a place. I mean, so one of the big articles that recently came out today, but it's just a repeating story, is a distrust for the industry and for realtors specifically. They're keeping information from us. They're not really showing us listings that they should be. And there's this kind of mood, even when we're talking about one side versus two sides, there's this mood for, well, like, just get rid of them. But I don't see that in the industry. That was one of the things that I was interested in. You guys have not only tried to develop, innovate, you're not putting all your eggs in the innovation basket, but you're also putting a big chunk of that into investing in realtors. So where does the real estate professional fit into the future of real estate from the perspective of the industry? So from where you guys are sitting and as you're developing your business?
Well, I think, first of all, when you're in the real estate industry, like, people speak about it as this industry, right? I mean, that's how we refer to it. And it's almost like a card carrying members only club. And it's like, hey, man, I'm part of this industry. And I think there are a lot of good things that come from that. I think cooperation between professionals and the type of systems and tools that get developed and the thinking that happens at an aggregate or corporate level is really beneficial to the overall market. But we must never forget that this is ultimately a transaction that an individual is making. So, and in housing, it's not just an investment decision. It's not just an asset or wealth creation opportunity. It's a social asset. It's a decision about how I'm going to live, where I'm going to live, what community I'm going to interact with. So there's a lot more at play. And I think what we sometimes miss, being inside of the industry, is that we think about it from an industry-centric standpoint, and we don't always do that consciously. It's just we put the needs, perhaps, of the business of real estate ahead of the needs of the individuals that are transacting in real estate and maybe doing it for the first time, or maybe doing it for the first time in 10 years. And so they don't care about the industry. The industry means nothing to them. What means something to them is, can I buy a home? Can I buy it effectively? Can I buy it in a way that is also cost effective and that I can trust? And so you used that word trust as well. And I think what's really interesting is technology has appeared on the scene. And I say that, but it's 20 years now. It's like we should be getting past the technology fear. It's appeared on the scene, and people on the home seeker side have seen it as this white knight. They're like, oh, fantastic. Someone else is now in the game and is helping me understand the landscape, helping me understand the space that I didn't understand before. You know, educating yourself becomes so much easier when guys like you are putting out great, series. And that is all being distributed, captured, edited, promoted through technology platforms. And so people have a trust in the tech because it's unlocking data and it's unlocking education and it's empowering them. But the technology is usually only the platform and the conduit for effective professionals to talk to the home seekers. And so if you look at the industry side, the distrust in technology is, hey, these guys are going to take my job. For some reason, platforms like Zillow and others, and look, I can't speak for the individual corporations, but the technology that they built on top of is certainly doing more to promote the real estate industry and the players, at least the good faith players in the industry, than anything else ever has. And so the distrust is perhaps misfounded from the industry. But yeah, there's obviously the future of where that goes. And I know a lot of people are on the side of, it should be as easy as one click to buy a house. Let's do Amazon for real estate. And that does feel disruptive because, in Amazon for real estate, this hyper consolidation of buying power into one corporation. If that were to happen in real estate, that would be a dark day, but not just for the industry, but also for home seekers, because I think there would just be, how would you be able to trust that kind of scale of purchase to a single corporation? I think that would be unfortunate. So yeah, and that's one future. That's the kind of Black Mirror future that people think about. But I don't think that that's really what's happening. What's actually happening is this acceleration of good faith professional activity because of the technology that they can leverage. Like we spoke about before, it's like you are now empowered with all sorts of incredible communication and business tools that enable you to be a world-class professional, even without any of the old, I say old industry, but the kind of aging industry mechanics. You know, the large brokerage with the big admin desk, with you know, a big conveyancing firm doing all of the paperwork. Those kinds of things have become less and less required, and you now see realtors actually being more and more effective and able to trade. And so I think that's the future, is the marketplace gains the trust of the real estate industry, and the marketplace gains the trust of the home seekers, and you get this great union between both sides of the market.
I love that. Love that. And I know a lot of the direction, and you guys are big into the younger generations are steering the market, right? And steering technology. We see that in all aspects. And for some reason we forget about it in real estate, but it's absolutely happening. And I don't want us to dance at all. I really want to take just a second to understand the search platform that REW has created, and also the way that you anticipate realtors to interact. Based on all of these things, you guys have put together a plan, and you guys are kind of looking to the future. What does that future look like at REW?
So yeah, rew.ca as it stands today is a fantastic aggregation of the market, the listing market, the data market that we have access to, and that we're able to publish to home seekers. And basically what it tries to do is create the best view on the real estate market in your local neighborhood, or in the areas of interest that you're looking to search for a home. And you mentioned the fact that, you know, as technology and platforms have come out of BC, particularly in real estate. I think that's because real estate is so important, especially here in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver. And I know in the GDA, that's the same big game sport. You know, it's a big deal, and people, particularly in the technology industry, are building tools to try and support that industry. But what we really see with REW and where REW is going is this hyper-personal real estate future. So right now, REW publishes all this content to the broad, wide internet, and home seekers can interact with it there, and they can find a great place to live. They can also find great realtors to transact with, and that's something that we want to move closer and closer to, which is this interaction between the home seeker and the professionals that are going to best serve them. And so that's why we've launched REW One. And REW One is basically our realtor-facing platform. It's the platform that engages with the best professionals in the market. And the idea is really quite simple. It's taking a lot from social media platforms and other influencer networks where real estate professionals are building their online reputation, which now matters, you know, even more than your offline reputation, is how are you perceived by the market and by home seekers online. And so we've taken a lot of those concepts and built them into a platform, but we've built them into a platform that connects them directly with engaged home seekers. Because, I mean, you think through the home seeker journey, nobody pops up and says, oh, okay, I'm getting into a real estate transaction. I'm going to start by looking for a great realtor. The truth is, they start by looking at the market. You know, even in the investment space, it's like, show me what's going on. I just want to see what's happening in the neighborhood. What are the trends? What are the communities look like? Is there going to be a property that makes sense for me to purchase in this market? And they do that through platforms like ours. So they interact directly with the content. And so the concept of REW One is to celebrate realtors' best work, to profile them extraordinarily well, to build in, you know, recent sales and evidential proof points of their success as a professional in the industry, and connect those proof points with home seekers in the process of their home search. And we think that by bringing those two together, you know, social media is great, but social media tends to happen in a non-transactional sense. It's like you can build your reputation, but you build it with kind of everyone. And then you get platforms and marketplaces like REW where you can build your reputation, but you can do it specifically within market home seekers. And that makes a big, big difference. I think it's like at the point you're in a consideration phase for a professional to help you, you should be presented with the best professionals. And so REW1 is really just a platform to put the best professionals in the best possible light in front of home seekers.
Yeah. I guess from within the industry perspective, there is really, apart from having channels like ours or intentionally getting out there and meeting people online, there's really no platform to do that. I mean, just think if you were a realtor, put yourself in the shoes of a realtor and you live in Toronto and you want to promote on Google. How do you do that? There's nowhere to do it. And then often brokerages are notorious for just really crappy websites and really basic. So now you're creating your own website. How do I get people there? So I love the idea that you guys have kind of created a framework where realtors are able to promote the things that they're doing in their local community. Because I honestly believe, I agree with you, it's becoming more and more, the searchability for realtors becoming more and more important as people no longer are concerned with who is mom's realtor, because mom's realtor doesn't know what she's doing in today's changing economy. The best place to find the realtor that is the same place that I found my listing. It's online. It's getting out there and being able to filter and learn, and with reviews and the ability to test somebody's capabilities online. If you're not doing that, I agree with you, you're falling behind. And I love that you guys aren't taking the approach of, I love it because it's a reflex for me to say, well, then screw the realtor. Like, let's just go do it yourself. But I also recognize that there is a need for realtors in the industry, and you guys have incorporated that and recognize that in the software that you've developed.
Well, they're doing an incredible job. I mean, if you think about the real estate industry in Canada, it's more so than any of the G7, G20 nations. It's a bigger share of GDP than any of our other, the actual real estate transaction is a huge driver of GDP for the nation. And so real estate agents are incredibly important to the economy, to their local communities, to home seekers on their individual purchase. But I think no platform does a great job of presenting the work that realtors do. And this is really interesting because this is this intersection between the data ownership and the data privacy rights of realtors and platforms that publish them to home seekers. Excuse me. Because if you think about it, home seekers deserve to see the best that realtors can do. But if you take something as simple as recent sold data and you don't produce that and publish it and connect it directly to home seekers, and you require only real estate agents to do that, I think that's, it's a great benefit to the realtors to have that data control. But what I think they miss in that is that home seekers also miss the full picture. So if you're an awesome, good faith player, if you are the best realtor in a local market and you're absolutely killing it, and you're providing a great service to the home seekers in that industry, well, in that particular market, how do the next batch of home seekers find out about you? How do they see the evidence of great work done? And I think that's what I've taken from other industries and other platforms is you get this incredibly high fidelity view of what's going on in the industry, who the good actors are, who the bad actors are, and where to take your business. Whereas in real estate, because realtors like, through their associations, through MLSs, like to control who can see what information, they do miss out on the opportunity to truly promote themselves to their market through their activities. I mean, the weird thing is I heard a realtor say it the other day. It's like, I didn't get into real estate to be an influencer. I didn't get into real estate to be a content creator. But it seems like you have to be now to really be a great realtor. But that's because a lot of the content that you do create, like the content that you create through your listings, the content you create through your sales, the content you create through testimonials and recommendations with clients that you've had, some of that content never makes it to the internet because it sits behind data privacy and firewalls, and that's a pity, because you can imagine if you're doing, if you're doing 10, 20 transactions through your team on a monthly basis, you're generating a hell of a lot of data points, which would confirm in the market how successful you are. And those are not necessarily seen by the people that matter, which is your next customer. So that's what we want to do with REW1 is really break through that, make the industry more trusted just by showing home seekers more of the data points.
Yeah. So guys, now you got a little flavor of what REW has been working on. And I think it's pretty exciting for folks who would typically be shy on camera, but very outgoing and productive in the workplace. Simon, this has been a really good conversation with you today. I appreciate you taking the time. Where can folks find more information about the REW1, I guess just on social, wherever you guys are to be found? Obviously, you guys have a pretty large website as well.
Yeah, so it's easy to find us, thankfully. Just rew.ca and you'll find the main portal platform. Rew.works if you're interested in real estate and you want to come and join our team. Our team is growing really fast, so you can find us there. And rew.one if you're a real estate professional and you really want to celebrate your best work with the people that matter.
Love it. Love it. Simon, thanks again. Guys, if you could support this show, hopefully you learned some stuff. It kind of made you wrestle a little bit with what the industry will look like because of technology. Please leave a comment for myself and Simon. You can also share this on Instagram and tag us at Watson Estates. Simon, appreciate the time that you've given us today, and we'll see you again next time.
Brilliant, Brandon. Thank you very much. Have a good one.